with the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear taillight, please?
Okay.
Do you see the condition of that taillight as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barros, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
That taillight is completely smashed out.
Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. That was some pretty impressive testimony, saying that the light was smashed out basically after it got to the Sally port, because that's where that photo was taken. This was important testimony for Mr. Jackson to get in this case, and I thought he presented it very well. Let's take a look at how he set this up before we actually get to that, I guess what we'd call the money shot here.
Where was the SUV at this point?
In the driveway.
Did you have an opportunity to see the SUV?
I did.
Did you walk all the way around it?
Not all the way around.
Did you see the rear end of it?
I did.
Did you make note of the rear end of it?
Yes.
How long would you say you were at the location in a position to observe the rear end of that SUV? 2 minutes, 20 minutes, something in between? Longer?
I would say not the entire time that I was there, but a good amount of time.
More than a glance?
Yes.
This is the afternoon of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Before the vehicle had been seized formally by Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe anything of note about the rear end of that black SUV?
Yes, I noted in a report that there was damage to the taillight.
Can you describe for the juror, by the way, which taillight are we talking about?
The right rear taillight.
Can you describe for the jurors what you noted in terms of the damage to the right rear taillight?
I noted that the report said that there was right rear damage to that taillight.
When you say damage, have you ever described that damage previously?
I have.
Can you tell us what that description is?
There was, it was damaged, the taillight was damaged, but there was a crack missing, but it was not completely damaged.
When you say there was a crack, do you mean there was a piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you call it?
The piece was about maybe this big.
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches.
And how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in there.
Then Mr. Jackson got him to explain how the taillight that he saw in the Reed's driveway, how it was different from the taillight that was photographed in the Sally port. Sergeant
Barros, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
That taillight is completely smashed out.
Now, Hank Brennan knows exactly how devastating this testimony is to his case. He understands that if the jury believes this officer, who doesn't have a dog in the fight, well, his goose is pretty much cooked. So, the only real attack, since he is a policeman, he can't be too hard on him, or at least you wouldn't think he had to be too hard on him. The only attack he can really make is, well, maybe your memory's off. Maybe you're just not remembering it right. So he sets off on this quest to make it look like Sergeant Barros is just making this whole thing up, or maybe he's suffering from some dementia. I'm not sure what he's attempting to accomplish here, but this is pretty low-level cross-examination, if you ask me.
So, in your memory, in June 10, 2024, was that vehicle's rear taillight had a piece missing, correct?
Correct.
And then there's this.
As you recall it when you were in Dighton back on January 29, 2022, you said your memory is as good as your memory that you said in court there was a difference between that photo and the damage, right?
Right.
Have you ever read your testimony from your last proceeding?
Never.
But you have a specific memory of discussing that specific photograph. Yes?
Yes.
He does this thing where he says, "Are you as sure about the taillight as you are about what you said in June of last year?" Which is stupid. Because a jury is not going to believe that if he didn't remember testimony that he hadn't seen in over a year, it somehow makes him a liar. But that's exactly what Hank tries to do here, and he tries to paint him not so much as a liar, but as like an Alzheimer's patient. It's odious, it's deceitful, it's the bottom of the barrel in legal tactics, and it doesn't work. It reeks of desperation. So he shows him a photo taken elsewhere, and the sergeant aptly notes that it was not taken in the Reed's driveway.
Yes?
Looks like snow is packed on it.
Does it look like there's a red taillight there?
Does not.
This is before you saw the car in Dighton? Do you know that, or you wouldn't know that?
That doesn't look like the Reed's driveway.
With that, Brennan sits down with a smug smile on his face as if he's just the cat that ate the canary. But having heaped enough mud on Sergeant Barros to build an adobe hut, Mr. Jackson is able to destroy that pathetic cross-examination in this way.
Did you celebrate your birthday 2 years ago?
I did.
Kind of a big deal. It's your birthday, right?
Yes.
What day of the week was your birthday 2 years ago?
No idea.
Do you have a difficult memory, sir?
Yes.
The fact that you had a birthday, you recall, correct?
Correct.
The day of the week of that birthday may fall by the wayside in your mind, right?
Right.
Sustained as to the form, Mr. Jackson is your witness.
The fact that you can't remember the day of the week, does that mean that you have a bad memory?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
Correct.
You remember being in Dighton, correct? Being called out to Dighton to the residence of the Reeds.
Correct.
Do you remember the time?
I do.
Do you remember the weather?
I do.
Do you remember who you met there?
I do.
Do you remember the conversations that you had?
I do.
Do you remember the phone calls that you received?
I do.
The first one?
I do.
The second one?
I do.
Do you remember being in the garage and speaking with someone?
I do.
Do you remember it was this lady, pretty lady right here in the blue?
I do.
You remember meeting Mr. Reed?
Briefly.
Handsome gentleman with gold tie?
I do.
You remember all that?
Mhm.
Do you remember the SUV?
I do.
Do you remember the condition of the taillight?
I do.
Now here's why what Brennan said is not important, and why what Barros said is important. This video was shown in the courtroom. Let's watch.
Do you recognize this scene generally?
I do.
Do you recognize it as being what do you recognize as being?
This is the Reed residence.
Do you see some vehicles in that still shot of the video?
I do.
Describe what you see.
That tow truck is diamond towing, and that other vehicle that's at the rear of that tow truck is the Lexus SUV.
If we could, with the court's permission, zoom in. It's high on the screen, correct?
What's that?
The vehicles are high on the screen as we're
Correct.
looking at it. Could we zoom in to the top left portion of the screen?
Okay?
Can we play this video?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you see what's depicted in the still image of that video right now?
I can.
I'm going to ask you if you'll turn to your right, concentrate on this area. This area here. Do you see what's depicted in that still image?
I do.
Does that appear to be a taillight?
Yes.
Does it look clear? Or does it look like it's shining red?
Looks clear.
The portion that is intact, does that appear to be brighter red?
Correct.
And the photograph that I just showed you a second ago, is that red portion there?
Can you rephrase that?
Sure. You see the red?
Yes.
All right. Is that the condition of the taillight as you saw it on January 29th around 3:15 to 3:30 when you got to the location?
It was.
You could clearly see that the tail light was in position. It was not completely smashed out the way it was at the Sallyport in Canton. That's important because that was the prosecution's film that was being shown. You can see the tail light, and you know that Sergeant Barros was telling the truth. The juries generally don't like bullies or bullying tactics. It's one of the reasons why I had a bit of an issue with the way that Jackson went after Dever. But the bottom line is that when you bully somebody who is clearly has nothing to gain by being deceitful, and you attempt to make them out as if they have a memory issue, you don't really gain anything with a jury in that regard because they've heard the direct testimony. They heard it first. And now you're coming in and saying his memory is bad? Well, that's ridiculous. And as Jackson points out, you know, a lot of things wash out of our memory, normally things that we believe are unimportant. But you know what doesn't wash out of our memories? I'll bet you right now that if you closed your eyes, you could immediately conjure up an image of the World Trade Center on 9/11 and the plane hitting it. All of the images that we saw that were burned into our memories on that day. Things that we see with our eyes, that we experience, those tend to stick with us. Now, this isn't a 9/11 kind of thing for the officer, but he did see it, he noted it in his report, and he testified truthfully about it. Again, I don't think Hank Brennan did nearly as well as Hank Brennan thinks he did. Here's a guy who is testifying adverse to the prosecution, has no dog in the fight, like I said. He's testifying honestly, you can tell. No closing the eyes when he speaks, no self-soothing behavior, none of that. Rather, what you see is a guy who knows that his testimony is not going to be popular with the Canton or Boston cops. But he's actually doing the right thing and testifying truthfully, not saying the right thing to please the commissioner. That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.